We're ready to start Daf Yutet. New Perek. We'll start again. Seder Taanit Elu. So the Perek before was called Seder Taanit Ketzad. Now it's Seder Taanit Elu. Meaning this order that we have 3 and 3 and 7. Ha'amur b'rvi'ah rishona. That's only by the first rain. Aval tzemachim sheshanu. If the crops grew and then they changed, matri'im alehem miyad. We right away we go to the hatra'ah type of a fast. We don't do the shorter fast and then the longer fast. You go right away to the full fast. Okay. V'chen shepasli geshamim. If the rain stopped in geshem legeshem 40 yom. If it started raining, and then it stopped between the rains for 40 days, matri'im alehem. Right away you start praying with the shofarot and everything. Because that's a makkah that leads to batzoret. Is we'll see later. There's 2 levels of famine. This is one of the levels of famine. Yardu litzmahim. If it came down for the tzimahim, for the plants, avalo yardu le'ilan, but it didn't come down for the tree. And we saw already in the beginning of the Masechet that there's certain rain that's beneficial for trees and certain rain that's beneficial for plants. So if one or the other, but the Gemara is going to get specific about it, right? Yardu le'tzmahim, avalo yardu le'ilan. If it rained for the plants but not for the trees, le'ilan v'lo le'tzmahim, for the trees and not for the plants. Lezeh lezeh, for trees and plants, avalo le'borot shehinu me'arod, but not enough to fill up the reservoirs. Matri'im alehem yad. We blow the shofar and we go to the severe type of fast right away. V'chen ir shelo yardu aleh geshamim. So till now we're discussing pretty much different types of problems. Now the Gemara is going to start discussing how we divide it between the one city and another city. If there's a problem in one city, how does that affect other cities? So v'chen ir shelo yardu aleha geshamim. If you have one city where no rain came, they also have to be matri. If the whole area had and they didn't have, they have to do it right away. D'chtivim tarti al ir ahad va'il ahad lo amtir chilka ahad timater v'gomer. Right? Hashem says it's in the curses. Right? He says I'm going to make it rain on one city, and on another city I won't make it rain. So that right away you have to fast. Right away. So we say, Otah ha'ir, the city where it didn't rain, mit'ana u'matra'at. They fast and they blow the shofar like. V'chol sevivoteha, and the cities around it, they're also going to be affected because you have these people in the city that don't have any rain, so they're not going to get anything growing. They're going to go around and they're going to jack up the prices all over the neighborhood. V'chol sevivoteha, the areas around, mit'anot, they fast v'lo matriol, but it's not as severe for them, so they have to fast, but they don't have to blow shofar. Rashi, ulefikach, tap Rashi, hakigasin otah ha'ir mit'ana u'matrat, v'kol sevivotea, the areas around it mit'anot v'lo matriot, ulefikach mit'anot. This is why they fast. She'otah ha'ir shelo yardu alei geshamim, telech leknota tebu'ah be'otah ha'ir. Right? You're going to have one city supporting 2 cities. It's not engineered like that the one city could support 2. So they're going to wind up causing a famine in the other cities too. So according to the Tanakama, the surrounding cities that don't have the acute problem, they have rain, they're going to be affected by the people next door. They fast, but they don't go to the severe fast. They don't do with the shofarot and so on. Rabbi Akiva omer the opposite. Matri'ot, they pray v'lo mitano, but they don't have to fast. Okay, that's again. It's the secondary city. Another case. V'chen ir sheyesh ba dever o mapolet, a city that has a plague, or it has earthquakes, buildings are falling. Otah ha'ir, that city mit'ana u'matrat. They fast. They fast and they blow shofar. V'chol sevivoteha, and the cities around it mit'anot v'lo matriot. They have to fast, but they don't have to blow shofar. So now, how does the earthquake affect the people near it? What? Because they're going to get displaced. People are going to run around. It doesn't say specifically.
David makes sense.
What?
David makes sense.
David, by the plague, you're afraid the plague is going to spread. Okay. Also, it could be when there's a plague. The most common response was to get out of town. Whenever there was a plague, so they don't know the plague is here, so go someplace else. Now, the two things could happen: either you're going to overwhelm the other city, or you're going to spread it. One of the two, depending on if the carrier is coming up. Okay. Rabbi Akiva Omer, no, matriot, they blow shofar and pray, avalom etano, but they don't fast. Ezehu dever, what qualifies as a plague? Ira motziah 500 ragli, a city that has 500 people. V'yatzu mimena shelosha metim b'shlosha yamim, and 3 people died in 3 days. Zeh hardeh, 3 consecutive days. Hareh zeh dever, that's considered a plague.
3 every day for 3 days?
No, 1 every day. Pahot mizeh, pahot mikan, less than that. En zeh dever, that's not a plague. Al elu, so those things, the people in the city that have it fast, and the people around them either fast and don't matria, or matria and don't fast.
5,000 people is 10 people?
Sure.
So it has to be that, in that ratio.
No, that ratio. So we say, Al elu matri'im bekol makom. On these things, we right away go to the matria, the fasting, and the matria all over. Ala shidafon. Shidafon is some sort of a crop disease. Ala yerakon. Yerakon is a sickness. Rashi shidafon batibuot. Matriim bechol makom. Look at Rashi, top bottom white line on the top. Im yir'u be'aspamya. If they see it in Aspamya in Spain, I don't know if it means Spain, but matriim bebavel. They blow shofar in Bavel. Bebavel matriim be'aspamya. Kedekatani ta'ama be'sefer, like we're going to say at the end of the Mishnah, because it's a mobile item. It moves around. If it's in one place, matrim aliyah, kol hashomim. Everybody has to, Everybody has to pray about it and probably fast. Kedei shelo tavo alehem, so it doesn't come to them. So shidafon is in tibu'ah. Yerakon is a holy, is a sickness.
The women have this in the kids, have
What?
We had Yerakon in Rafat, no?
You could be. You have it in Behukotai. Shidafon, a blight, a disease that affects crops, or crops damaged by searing eastern winds. That's Shidufot Kadim. Rashi quotes Shidufot Kadim by Paro. Yeah. Yerakon, a disease that affects people, or Rashi in Devarim says it's a mildew affecting the crops because the mildew is like greenish. Ve'al ha'arbeh, which fits better. It fits better because what's it called? Because we're dealing with crop things. Ve'al ha'arbeh, and on different types of locust. Ve'al hasil, also another type of locust. He translates arbeh, the Sudanese or desert locusts, which reach Eretz Yisrael in large numbers. According to Yemenite tradition, arbeh refers to a specific red species of locust. Hasil is an especially destructive species of locust. Okay, ve'al hayara'a, and on wild animals that are aberrating from the normal pattern. Normally they don't come into town, and now they're coming into town. Ve'al ha'heriv. Rashi says chayara'a mishakil b'nei adam, the eating people. Ve'al ha'heriv, on armies, Rashi hayalot ha'olchim laharog lashchi b'chol makom. Even if there's bands of soldiers, or it could be even if the soldiers are not coming to fight here, they're just walking through town. But those guys are not known to spread good cheer when they ayasayil. Matriim aleha mepnei shehi makah mehalechet, because that's something that travels. Everybody has to pray. You never know where they're going. Ma'aseh, there was a story. Shiardu zekenim Yerushalayim la'arehem. The zekenim were going from Yerushalayim back to their towns. V'gazru Taanit, they declared a Taanit. Al shendrei kimlo pi tanur shidafon be'Ashkelon. They saw some shidafon in Ashkelon, which is not even a Jewish city, right? It's a Pelishti city, and they saw not a lot. They saw enough shidafon that from that tibu'ah you would bake one oven full of bread. A small amount. This is the time to go make a gezerah. Why? Because it could spread. So you gotta quarantine. You gotta get rid of it right away. Right? V'od gazru ta'anit. They made another ta'anit. Also, you want to talk about this type of one thing? We make a ta'anit all over. Al she'achlu ze'evim shnei tinokot be'ever Yarden. There were two wolves, and they ate two.
There were many wolves.
Some wolves ate two children in Ever Yarden, on the other side of the Jordan, but it's Makam Mehalechet. Rabbi Yossi Omer lo al she'achlu, not because they ate, ela al she'nir'u, because they were seen in town. Rashi, she'achlu ze'evim shu hayara'a u'makam mehalechet, she'nir'u u'ba'u ba'ir, they don't belong in town. Al elu matri'in b'Shabbat. For these things we could cry out and pray on Shabbat. Rashi matri'im be'anenu, as opposed with shofar, like we said in the last perek, we said this. Al ir shehikifu anochrim, a city that's surrounded by goyim, so they're threatening to conquer the city. You could pray for it on Shabbat, or Nahar, or the river is rising and it could overflow the city. You have to pray. If there's a ship that's floundering in the sea and it might die, it might sink, you pray. They could pray with anenu on Shabbat.
For other people, this is something else.
Now they're praying for themselves, the people on the ship.
Oh, on the ship, so the city.
How do the people in the city know what's going on? Hamtarefet, milashon tarafa babat, banging on the wall, on the door. Milashon betzat trufa, scrambled eggs. Kedem mefaresh beperek shelemala. Meaning it's like it's being scrambled. It's on the boat. It's being scrambled. Yeah. Rabbi Yossi says, le'izra. They called out for help, v'lo le'tza'aka, but not to pray to Hashem. Rashi in the perek before said a very interesting lashon on that. Rashi said, where was it? No, it was even in the first perek, right?
No, it wasn't that far.
It's from Wednesday. So this
No, it's before this. Rashi said, because we're not batuach. Where is it? I'll tell you exactly. Yudal and Amadal. Rashi said, it's in the first perek, I told you. Rashi says, le'ezra tzo'akim lebnei adam she'avo le'ezram. V'lo le'tze'aka tefilah. But not prayers. She'en anu betuchim kol kach. We're not so confident she'to'il tefilatenu, that our prayers are going to help. So let's talk alehem b'Shabbat. So why should we ruin Shabbat by praying in like a fast day mode? And who knows if our prayers are going to be answered? Better to keep Shabbat. It will help us more.
what's wrong with praying and
That's not, you're sitting and you're making a ta'anit on Shabbat.
Are they doing 3? They're doing 6? They're doing 19?
No. They're praying on Shabbat. The ship is sinking now. You want to make a big minyan and you're going to start saying Tehillim and what's the goal? He says, that's not Shabbat. Just call for help. Go get people to help them.
So we're talking about the people outside the ship or inside the ship?
I'm not sure. It sounds like the people on the ship, because I don't know how the people, unless
On the
there's
ship,
people
they get
seeing the
scrambled,
ship.
you said.
How are you going to see these people on the ship? All right, what are they going to do? Who else knows about the ship?
We're getting scrambled.
See the cloud.
How are the people that are under siege going to send for help also? I don't know. Okay. Smoke signals. Okay. Shimon Atimni Omer, Afala Dever. You can also cry on Shabbat if there's a plague. V'lo hodu lo chachamim. The chachamim didn't agree to him. Al kol tzara shelo tavo la tzibur. For any trouble that comes to the tzibur, matri'im aleha. We can pray for it. Chutz mirov geshamim. Except for too much rain. Now, too much rain is also could flood and so on. Maaseh sha'amru lo lehoni ha'me'agel. They told Honi, who made the circle, hitpalel, pray for us, sheyerdu geshamim, that it should rain. Amar lahem, he told them, tze'u ve'achnisu tanurei pesachim, b'shvil shelo yamoku. So they had their summer things, they still had them out because it hadn't rained. So they had these ovens that they roasted pesachim sitting in the backyard. They're made of clay. If it rains a lot, they're going to melt. He told them, bring them inside. It's going to pour. Hitpalel, he prayed, v'lo yardu geshamim, and it didn't rain. Ma'asa, what did he do? Hag uga, he made a circle. Ve'amad betocha, and he stood inside. Ve'amar lefanav, and he said in front of him, Ribono shel olam, Master of the world, Banecha samu penehem alai. Your children put their faces to me, they look to me, Sha'ani ki ben bayit lefanecha, because I'm like a member of the household by you. Nishba ani b'shimcha gadol, I swear by your great name, She'eni zaz mikan, that I'm not going to move from here, ad she'terachem al banecha, till you have mercy on your children. Etchilu geshamim minatefim, it started to drizzle. Amar, he said, lokach sha'alti, it's not what I asked for. Ela gishme borot shehinu me'arot, I asked for rain that will fill up the cisterns. Hetchilu lered bezaf, it started to pour. Amar lo kach sha'alti is not what I asked for either. El geshme ratzon berachan dava. Yardu tikitiknam, it came down properly. Ad sheyatzu Yisrael miYerushalayim lahar habayit. Till the people that were low lying in Yerushalayim, they had to go up to the Har Habayit mipnei geshamim, because it was flooding. Came down to berachan dava, but it didn't stop. It was berachan. Right? Ba'u ve'amru lo, they told him, okay, kishem shitpalalta alehem sheyirdu, like you pray that they should come, kach etpalel sheyelchu, please pray for them to leave. Amar lahem, he told them, tze'u ru'im nimchit even hato'in. Go see if the stone of to'in is already washed away. Let's see what Rashi says. Mirov geshamim, lav kegon sheyardu al ir ahab, ve'al ir ahat lo yarda, shesham v'ada ishtem leklala, that's for sure a curse. Kedamar of Yudah before. Timatar, in one place it's pouring, the other place it's not coming. That's considered a curse right away, like we said in the beginning. Ela kvar yardu v'torachem levnei adam aval ena mikalkelim tivuah. It's talking, it's coming, but it's not enough to ruin the tivuah. Ta'amam mefaresh b'gemara lama en matriim. The Gemara is going to explain why you don't pray for it. Tanurei pesachim shehem b'chatzerot, it's in the courtyard. V'shel cheresin, they made of clay. Umetaltelin otam, we move them shelo yimuku b'geshamim, they shouldn't melt. Geshme borot shipua b'geshamim, a lot of rain. Lemalot borot, to fill up the borot. V'nedavot or nedava ratzon, favor v'ayin yafeh, dry. Even atoin hayta b'Yerushalayim, there was a stone for people that were lost. V'kol mi she'avda lo aveda, whoever lost something, he would go there and they would, it was like the lost and found. So it was a big stone, people would stand on top and show what they found and whatever, and announce that they found something. So if that big stone is gone, then I'll pray for you. We'll see more about it in the Gemara. The Gemara has a bright that goes into it in detail. So the Gemara, the Mishnah continues. Shalach lo Shimon ben Shetach. So at that time, the Nasi was Shimon ben Shetach. He sent him, if you weren't Choni, that you're known to be such a big tzaddik, goes Rani Alecha Nidu, I would have put you in Hirim for making a shivu'ah that you're not going to leave the what's it called. How do you swear by Hashem's name something that's not in your hand? Right? Aval, ma'aseh, what should I do? She'ata mitchatel lefnei hamakom, you bother Hashem, ve'oseh lecha retzonecha, and he does what you want. You nag him. Keben shu mitchate al aviv, like a son who nags his father, ve'oseh lo retzono, and he does what he wants. Ve'alecha katuv omer, about you and your type, your type of tzaddik. The pasuk says, "Smach avicha ve'emecha," your father and your mother will be happy. V'tagil yolatecha, and the one who bore you will exult. The Gemara continues. The Mishnah continues. Hayu mitanim, if they were fasting, v'yardu lahem geshamim, and it rained. So what happens? Kodem hanetzach hamam. If it rained before sunrise, lo yashlimu, they don't finish. La'achar hanetzach hamam, after sunrise, yashlimu. So then they finish the fast. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Kodem Hatzot, before midday, lo yashlimu, they don't complete it. La'achar Hatzot, after midday, yashlimu, they complete it. Ma'aseh, there was a story, Shegazru Taanit belod, they decreed a Taanit in Lod, V'yardu lahem geshamim Kodem Hatzot, and it rained before Hatzot. Amar lahem Rabbi Tarfon said, Tze'u ve'echlu ve'shtu, go eat and drink. Ve'asu yom tov, and make a yom tov. V'yatzu ve'achlu ve'shatu ve'asu yom tov. Uba'u ben ha'arba'im, they came in the afternoon, ve'karu halel hagadol, and they thanked Hashem by saying halel hagadol. Because it ends off, noten lechem l'chol basar. Right? Seder ta'aniyot ha'elu amur b'rvi'ah rishonah. So the Mishnah says that the order that we had in the Perek before of 3 and 7 is in the first, by the first rain. Urminhi, I'll ask you a question. The first rain, right? We said the first rain is on, let's say, on the 3rd of Heshvan, the second is on Yud Zayin, and the third is on the 23rd, right? When do we start fasting? On the 23rd, right? The Yehidim start fasting on the 23rd. And we said, depending on what you hold the calendar of the rains is, you always start fasting on the third one. The first two, you're only asking for the rain. The third one is when you start fasting. So how can you tell me that what we said over there to start fasting is by the first rain? It's not true. You only start the fasting by the time of the third rain. Amar Yehuda hachi kama. What it meant is like this. Seder Taanit ha'amur. This order of Taanit that we said, ematai when bizman shiatzar v'arishona, when the time of the first rain came, v'shniya v'shlishi v'lo yardu. It hasn't rained at all. Hasn't rained at all. So then you start with that gradual business. 1, 3, and 3 and 7. Right? Aval yardu geshamim b'rvi'a rishona. If it rained the first time, v'zar'u, and they planted, v'lo tzamhu, and then it didn't grow, inameh tzamhu, if it grew, v'hazru v'nishtanu, and then it got changed, matrim aleh miyad. Right away we start fasting with the anenu.
We have 2 stories that we found in Shas.
So you see, what it means is like this: if it started raining, if it didn't start raining, which is the normal lack of rain, is it hasn't rained yet. So then you do it gradually. But if it's if it started raining and then it stopped, so you planted, now you're already you're in the hole, your stuff is in the ground, and now it's going to get ruined. Or it rained and then it started growing and something went wrong with the crop. There's no time to waste. You got to pray right away. That goes back to normal. Amar Rav Nachman says, Davka nishtanu. We only fast right away if it changed. Aval yavshu, but if it dried out, lo, you don't go straight to that fasting with the shofarot. Rashi says, Davka nishtanu, dechi nishtanu, when it changed, vaday hu dematrim miyad, the tzarich litpalel shiachzor biyofi, it should go back to normal kiteknam. Aval yavshu, if it dried out, lo tzarich, you don't have to fast. Demikan va'elach lo yo'il. If it dried out, there's nothing to do. Know exactly how that works. So there's 2 explanations. There's this first explanation in Rashi that says Yavshu, it's beyond hope. If it dried out, there's nothing to do. You can't save it. Or there's a second explanation. Yavshu, if it dried out, it will come back by itself. Rashi later on the page says like that. So Gemara says Yavshu pshita, if it dried out pashut, either because it's for sure going to come back or there's no hope. Right? Pshita nishtanu tanan. It says only that they changed. It doesn't say that they dried out. Lo tzricha de akun. This de akun is a little bit of a difficult word. Or the hadar akun. The Bach has it went back and it was akun. Akun is milashon kaneh, the stalk. So mao de teima, I might say akanta miltahi. The fact that it got a stalk means something. Kamash malan. So in the first shot of Rashi, he says, after it dried out a little bit, it grew up a little bit. Some sort of a stalk came up after it was dried. So you might say, oh, look, you see, there's hope. Let's pray so that it continues growing. Kamash Malan, no, that's like a sketch. It's a little bit of a grow. It's not going to do anything for you. It's still hopeless. That's one shot. The second shot is, in the pshat that says that it's not hopeless, that it's going to come back by itself. The other one is lo tzricha dakun, that it dried out after it started growing up. So you might say, oh, once it started sprouting, if it dries out, there's no hope for it to recover. Kamash malan, even though it sprouted a little bit, it could still recover after it dried out, and you don't have to fast. Kamash malan, mao detema akanta milti kamash malan. V'chen shepas b'geshamim ben geshen legeshen. If it stopped raining between the 2 rains, 40 days, you fast right away, because it's a makah batzoret. It says Gemara, my makah batzoret. What does it mean? It's a makah of batzoret. So we say like this: Amar Rav Yehuda, Amarav makah hamevi'ah lidei batzoret. It brings to poverty, or brings to famine. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says like this. Now there's going to be two types of famine. There's batzoret, which is a lesser level, and there's kafna, which is a higher level. So we say like this: Nahara betzorta. No, Nahara and Nahara. One river on another river, betzorta. That's the lesser level of famine. Why? Because you could ship in the stuff on the river. It's easy to bring in tibuah on the river. It doesn't cost so much, and you're able to get it. You're able to bring in a reasonable amount. So it's more expensive. It has to be imported, but it's not that desperate. Medina medinta. But if it's two cities and there's no river, you have to truck it in by camels and by donkeys. Kafna. That's a total famine because it's going to be prohibitively expensive. V'amar bi Hanina. Sa'a b'sela v'shchicha. If you could buy a sa'a for a sela, which is very expensive, it's 4 times the normal price. V'shchicha. But if you go to the store with the money, you get it. Bitzorta. That's the lower level famine. Bitzorta. Arba'a b'sela. 4 sa'a for a sela, which is the regular standard price. V'lo shchicha, but you can't get it. Kafna, that's a famine. You can't get it. You can't get it. Amar bi Yohanan, lo shanu ela bizman shama'ot bizol. This is what we say, that if sa'a b'sela it's only a batzoret, that's only if people have money. And the perot are yoker, they're expensive. Aval ma'ot bi yoker u perot bizol. If the food is cheap, but nobody has money, right? You can't make money, right? Right away, you have to go to the severe fasting. Rabbi Yohanan says, I remember, they were selling 4 se'im for a selah, regular price, cheap. There were many people with blown up bellies from hunger, because they had no money to buy it. Food was cheap, money was expensive. If it rained for the crops, but not for the trees, so we say Bishlam. I understand l'tzmachim v'lo ilan, how it comes down for the trees and not for the crops. Mashkahala de atanicha v'lo atarazia. It came down gently, which is good for the crops, and it didn't come down strong, which is good for the trees. The ilan v'lo l'tzmachim, the opposite. The atyarazia came down strong, v'lo atyanicha, it didn't come down soft. Lazeh v'lazeh, for this and this, v'lo l'berit v'lo shechim v'lo me'arot. It came down for both, but not for the cisterns. Mashkahala da'at yaraz yavenicha. It came soft, it came hard. Miutuva lo'ata. It didn't come in sufficient quantities to fill up the cisterns. Elahad detanya. This is what we learned. Yardu leborot l'shechin u'marot. It came down enough for the cisterns. Avalol lezeh v'lezeh, but not for this one or that one. Hechi, not for the plants and not for the trees. Hechi mishkahala. How could you have such a case? Da'at ya b'shvichuta. It came down in buckets. It poured down very fast, like a flash flood type of thing. The cisterns filled up, but it came down so fast it didn't have time to penetrate into the ground for the trees and the trees and the crops. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned. Matri'im ala ilanot. We fast for the trees befrosa Pesach, around Pesach time. That's when it's critical that the rain come for the trees. Alaborot, shichin ve'me'arot. We fast for the cisterns. Filu befrosa Hag, even right before Sukkot. Why? Rashi says they need it then. I don't know why he needs this for. Lashkot zera'im ve'et be'emtam, because they need it to give the animals, and they need it for what's it called? They need it for to irrigate their crops. What about for drinking? Val kulan. Here, that's the next one. Even without drinking, val kulan and all these things. If there's no water to drink, matrim alehem miyad. Then you go to the severe fast right away. Ve'ezeo miyad shelahem. What's right away? Sheni v'hamishi v'sheni. Monday, Thursday, Monday.
Everyone agrees that we do listen to the matko.
What do I need a background?
But in the case where they're equal, in the case where there's a reason to go this way, and there's a reason to go this way.
Ve'al kulam and all these things. En matrim alehem. You only fast for them. Ela ba'afrachya shelahem. Only in their district. Rashi be'oto malchut shekalu sham meborot shechinu meron. That area where it's missing. Askera is a disease. Rashi calls it bon malch. Pe'amim shenikva betoch hapeh shel adam umet. Sometimes it goes in a person's mouth and he dies. Let's see how he translates it here. Bon malch. Choking quinsy, a painful pus-filled inflammation of the tonsils and the surrounding area. Right? Vel askira kanere, that's like epidemic type of stuff.
In that case, that's the case.
Yeshua said it in his case. In his case, it was negative at all. Yeshua never said it anywhere else. The argument I brought it to say,
Ve'askira bizman sheyesh b'mita, if it's fatal, matrim alea, you blow shofar and you fast for it right away. Bizman she'em b'mita, if it's not fatal, em matrim alea, they don't fast for it. Umatrim ala govai, you fast for this govai, this type of grasshopper bekolshu, even if you see a drop, because he has friends. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar omer, afala hagav, even for the hagav, which, like we said, is a little bit less destructive. Or hagav kolshu, a little bit of hagav is common, so we don't have to. That's not abnormal. Govai, a little bit is abnormal. We're going to assume more is coming. Tan Rabbanan, matriim al ilanot b'shar shnei shavua. We fast and blow shofar for the trees that are in trouble during the other years of the Shemitah cycle, but not during Shemitah, because it's hefker. Ala barot, ala shehim, ala me'arot, but for the cisterns, afilu b'shvi'it, because you need water. Rashbag omer, afa ala ilanot b'shvi'it, even on the trees, mepnei sheyesh ben parnasa lanim, because the poor people eat from them. Tanya idach, we have another braita. Matriim ala ilanot b'shar shnei shavua. Same thing. We fast for the trees during the other years of Shemitah, not in Shemitah because it's hefker. Ala borot, ala shihim, ala me'arot. On the cisterns, afilu b'shvi'it, even in Shemitah. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, afala ilanot matri'im. Even for the trees, we blow shofar. Ala sefichim b'shvi'it. Funny lashon. It should be, Rashi quotes it like this. Look at Rashi. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, matri'im ala ilanot, on the trees, ve'af ala svichim shel shvi'it. She'enam hashuvim kolkach. Svichim is the stuff that grows on the ground by itself. Meaning, normal trees grow without being planted. Svichim is stuff that you have to plant. But sometimes it grows by itself because there were stray seeds that fell during the thing and it grows by itself. So generally, Svichim is not so much. It says matriim ala svichim b'shvi'im. So on trees, which is a lot, then the svichim, which is much less. Mepnei sheyesh bahem parnasa la'aniyim. Because the aniyim could enjoy them. So that's a machloket. There's a machloket if svichim are asur in shemitah or not. Svichim that you didn't plant. Some Tanaim hold you're allowed to eat them, some Tanaim hold you're not. So the first baraita holds that Rashbag holds that asur. So there's no point in fasting for the svichim. Second baraita would hold that you're allowed to eat the svichim because if you trees, there's no problem with svichim. They don't plant them. But this stuff, if you tell me you're allowed to eat it, the guy says he'll plant some and they'll say, oh, it grew by itself. I don't know what happened. It just came. So according to some Tanaim, the svichim are asur.
Is it fruit or?
No, it's great stuff that grows from the ground. Anything that grows from the vegetables is all svichim. That's why they bring yivul nochri, either yivul nochri or heter mechira. Because if it would grow in Israel on its own, it's not. There's no otzar betin in svichim. Can't be. Svichim asur.
Say hagefen, and then say begat hamazon, and then drink. Why don't we do that?
I was talking to that rabbi when he was here. He told me that sometimes there's otzar beitin and tzvichim in the first couple of months, like he showed you that according to most poskim that the first couple of months the tzvichim are not asur. So then it's okay. Tana Amar Bilazar ben Parta. Miyom shehareh Beit HaMikdash, from the day the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, na'asu geshamim tzimukim. The rain dried up. Tzimukim la'olam. So dried up. Yesh shana shegeshamei mirubim. Some years there's a lot of rain. Yesh shana shegeshamei mu'atim. And some years there's less rain. Yesh shana shegeshamei yordim bizmanam. Some years they come down in the right time. Yesh shana she'en geshamei yordim bizmanam. And some years it doesn't come down in the right time. Shana shegeshamei yordim bizmanan. Any year that the rain comes down in the time. Lemau domeh le'eved shenatan lo rabo parnasato be'ahad b'shabbat. Right? So if you get paid on time, right? So everything goes good. You go to the bank, you put in the money, you don't have to borrow. There's no interest. You buy what you need, right? He bakes the bread properly. You eat it properly. When it doesn't come down in the right time, he gave it to him on Friday. Now go shopping. Now go bake. Everything is rushed. It's not baked properly. You eat it in a hurry. A year that has a lot of rain. He gives him parnasah one time. So now he goes when he right. There's a loss factor whenever you grind the wheat. So there's a certain amount that gets stuck in between the gears, stuff that you can't sweep up from the rehaim. You're going to lose a certain amount, but it's the same for a lot and for a little. Right? It's the same loss factor. If you do a little bit at a time,
every time you're losing.
Every time you're losing, you do it in one shot, you're good. Nimtza rehaim tohanot min akur. They eat up from a kur, which is a large measure. Mashe tohanot min akav. Or they eat up from a kav. Nimtzet isa ochel min akur. The isa eats from the dough eats up and weighs from the kur. Ma kemo ochel min akav. Shana shegeshamei motim. When the rain comes a little, the maudume. Le'evet shenatan lo rabo parnasato me'at mat. He gives it them in dribs and drabs. Nimtza rehaim. Masha tohanot min akur, tohanot min akav. Well, they eat up from the kur normally. Now they eat it from every kav. So you can eat up. If there's 30 kav, no, there's 30 kav.
Afterwards. So it's not possible.
Yeah, there's 30 kav, I think, in the kur, right? Or there's 30 sa'ah in the kur.
Is it the right
Huh?
thing to do? Yeah, it should be done.
40 sa'ah in the mikveh. But this kav.
I explain it. It's a word. Hello. You're sleeping.
Yeah, it's 30 kav. It's 30 kav. 30 kav. Ke'askelab yagodu. Okay, so it's 30 kav. So you're eating up. You're losing 30 times in the auxiliary stuff, right?
I got that.
But
30 seh and a kav is 1/6 of a seh.
I can answer here.
a kur is 30 sa'ah.
That's what it says here. And a
Wow,
kav
let him
is
try
1/6
and
of a
explain
seh.
something
Thus,
that
the
you
kur is 180 times greater than the
Oh
kav.
wow, not like me. Okay,
That's the amount of the grain lost when the kur is
so losing 180 times the amount.
only a kav is ground. Yeah.
Kafar acher, another pshat. Bizman shegeshamei merubim, when the rain comes a lot, lemau domeh laadam shemegabel tatit. Somebody making mortar. Im yesh lo mayim rabim, if he has enough water. Mayim enam kalim, the water doesn't run out. Vatit migubal yafeh, and the cement is made properly. Yesh lo mayim me'atim, if he has a little bit of water. Mayim kalim, the water adds. Vatit enam mitgabel yafeh, and it doesn't mix well. It doesn't hold well. Tan Rabbanan, Pamahat alu kol yisrael laregel Yerushalayim. One time, all the Jews went to the holiday in Yerushalayim. V'lo hayalahim mayim lishtot. They didn't have water to drink. Halach Nakdimon ben Gurion etzel adon ehad. Nakdimon ben Gurion went to a certain wealthy person. Amar lo, he told him, Halveni, lend me 12 ma'ayanot mayim. 12 wells of water, or 12 degrees of water. Not clear. Le'oleh galim. Ve'ani eten lecha 12 einot mayim. I'll fill them up for you. Meaning the rain will come and they'll fill up. Don't worry. Ve'im eni noten lecha, and if the rain doesn't come and fill them up, harini noten lecha 12 kikar kesef. I'll give you 12 talents of silver for them. Ve'kavalos man. He gave him a time when it will be filled up. Kivan she'igi azman v'lo yardu. When the time came and didn't come down, lo yardu geshamim. B'shachrit in the morning, shalach lo. He sent him, okay, habibi, it's time to pay. Shager li, send me, o ma'im o ma'ot, money or water. Shalach sheyesh li biyadech, the money that I have by you. Shalach lo, he turned to him. Adayin yesh li zman, kol hayom, I have all day. Kol hayom kulo. Kol hayom kulo, the day is mine. At Tzahorayim in the afternoon, shalach lo, he sent him. Shager li o ma'im o ma'ot. What do you think? It's coming down. Sheyesh li biyadecha. Shalach lo adayin yesh li shahut bayom. I still have time in the day. B'mincha, in the afternoon, shalach lo shagel li o mayim o ma'ot sheyesh li. Send me the money or the water. Shalach lo adayin yesh li shahot bayom. I still have time. Ligleg alav oto adon. He started to make fun of him. Amar kol hashana kula lo yardu yeshimim. Didn't rain all year. Ve'achshav Yerdu Geshamim, and now it's going to rain. Nichnas lebet hamerchatz b'simcha. So he went into the bathhouse happy. Ad sheha'adon nichnas b'simchato lebet hamerchatz. He went into the bathhouse happy. Nakdimon nichnas lebet hamikdash keshu atzev. He went in upset. Nit'atef, he wrapped himself. Ve'amad b'tefillah. Amar lefanav, he prayed in front of Hashem. Ribono shel olam. Galui v'yadua lefanecha. It's known in front of you. Shelo lechvodi asiti. I didn't do it for my honor. V'lo lechvod bet abba. Not for my family asiti. Ela lechvodcha asiti. I did it for your honor. Shiu mayim mitzuyim le'olei regalim. There should be water for the people coming up to the Beit HaMikdash. Miyad nitkashru shamayim be'avim. The sky became dark with clouds. V'yardu geshamim. It rained ad shenitmalu 12 ma'ayanot mayim till the 12 wells filled up. Ve'hotiru. And there was extra. Ad shiatza adon mi Beit HaMerchatz. When the Adon was coming out of the Beit HaMerchatz, Nakdimon ben Gurion yatza mi Beit HaMikdash. Nakdimon came out of the Beit HaMikdash. Kishepagu ze bazeh. When they met each other, Amar lo, so Nakdimon told the guy, Ten li demeh mayim yoter sheyesh li bi'adecha. He says, you owe me money, because I overpaid you. Amar lo yodeh ani, he says, I know shelo erisha kadosh baruch hu et olamo el b'shvilcha. I know that Hashem changed nature for you. Ela adayin yesh li petchon pe alecha. But I have what to say. She'otzim mimcha ad ma'otai that I can get my money. Shekvar shaka hama. Sunset. V'geshamim birshuti. You know when it rains, it's dark. Right? Hazar v'nichnas l'beit HaMikdash. He went back into the Beit HaMikdash. Nit'atef ve'amad b'tfilah. Ve'amar leFanav Ribono shel olam. Hoda, let it be known, sheyesh lecha ahovim ba'olam, that you have people that you love in the world. Miyad, right away, nitpasru avim, the clouds opened. Ve'zarha hamma, and the sun shone. Be'ota sha'a amar lo Adon, ilu lo nakdera hamma, if the sun didn't shine, hayali petchon pe'alecha shotzim mimcha ma'otai, I could have got my money from you. Ta'ana, we learn, lo nakdimon shemo, ela buni shemo, his name is really Buni. V'lam nekra shemo nakdimon, shenakdera hamma ba'avuro, the sun shone for him.
Why he went to the last minute,